Welcome to Hear Her Story podcast episode 9. I'm thrilled to have as my guest today, Christina Pierce, Sales Operation Manager at Panasonic in the IIoT Solutions Division. Christina has been an ally of the Women in Manufacturing Association, as well as a leader in our New York chapter that we're establishing to provide local benefits to women in that region. And I'm thrilled to have a conversation with her today around her journey in manufacturing, as well as to share her insights to current and future women in industry. So welcome, Christina.
Thank you for having me, Allison.
So as I mentioned, I'm thrilled to have a conversation with you. I know we've got some commonality in terms of kind of regional roots. So, I made my way to Ohio through my father's relocation with Firestone Tire and Rubber Company. He had been previously in Rochester, New York, and I still have family members there. So I know you have some roots in Rochester, as well as I think some stuff that you do regionally to mentor and talk to those in school there.
Yeah. Born and raised in Rochester, went to RIT, still here, and I love it. It's a great place.
It's a great place to live. The only thing I do remember, even though I was pretty young, were the winters were not too much fun. They're a little rough, a little snowy, a little cold.
They can be. It's not for the faint of heart, but it's the rest of the year. Once you get past March, it's a beautiful place to live.
Great. Well, and I know we're thrilled to have your local support and passion around growing a community for women in that region. When we started the organization more than a decade ago, the goal was to create that community. It's so nice when we can offer local chapters where people can, network close to home, find and make new relationships that they have easier access to than perhaps a virtual connection with us and or some of our national conferences. So we appreciate your local support.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's nice. We're really working hard to get the chapter up and running. So we've had a few good events and we're getting ready to plan some more.
Great. Well, I know as we talk to women who have been guests on our podcast, and as well as we've done our Hear Her Story blog series for many years, it's really interesting to always hear how people made their way into manufacturing. It's usually not a traditional route, and usually a career that happened sometimes by chance or by some introductions that happened, whereas they maybe didn't think manufacturing was in their sights in the future. So I'd love to hear a little bit about how you made your way into manufacturing.
Well, it's funny. When I was young, there was this short-lived TV show called Hotel, and it made the industry seem so glamorous. And I wanted to manage, a grand hotel. So because of that, I went to school for hotel management, actually. And then in my senior year, long story short, I decided it wasn't for me. So I changed majors to mechanical engineering. Then I graduated, and my first job out of college, I was designing parts for printers. And I worked a lot with contract manufacturers to tool and qualify parts. And then a few years later, I became a project manager in the manufacturing resource team. And that group was responsible for managing the manufacturing startup of new products. From there, ultimately, I led the manufacturing startup of one of our company's flagship products. And then I went on to run the factory from there.
Interesting. So first interested in hospitality management, mainly thanks to the influence of a show. And I remember that show very well. I remember James Brolin, I think, was the manager,
so, yeah.
The hotel lead. Isn't it interesting how media and shows when we're younger can so influence maybe what we're interested in? I similarly I was a big TV person, as I still am present day. Thank God for binging and Netflix. But so many of those shows hugely influence things I thought I wanted to go into. So it's funny and how interesting that you then switch to printing, which I know obviously has a stronghold in many of those companies within the Rochester area. So as you talk about project management, what did you like about kind of moving into some of the role as you first got introduced? And then as well, what are some of those things that you do on a day-to-day basis in your current role that you really enjoy and like?
Well, in my current role, I'm sales operations, and I lead a technical team of sales engineers that design solutions for manufacturers, material flow slutions. So I love working with customers. It was something I never thought of. taking this job was one of those really step outside of my comfort zone kind of jobs. I never thought of myself being good in sales and really, enjoying talking to customers and really trying to, get them interested in our solutions and being comfortable. And it's really turned out to be something I enjoy a lot. Being, coming out of manufacturing, you don't really get to deal with customers day to day. Unfortunately, but moving into sales, it's really an eye-opening experience for me.
So I'm sure that the last, 18 plus months of pandemic have influenced how you do work. And I can imagine that in a sales capacity, probably things have had to change in how you manage customers, communicate with customers. What have been some of the eye-opening experiences as you've moved into this new sales position and role at the time of pandemic, when I'm sure things are done differently?
Yeah. So, what, the product, the solutions we sell, it really helps to be on site at a customer site to see how their operation runs, see how we can help them out. So going into the pandemic, all of that travel, all of those customer visits came to a screeching halt. And so we had to get creative with trying to work with our customers to understand their processes without actually seeing it. A lot of times we even, would have the customer take their phones and walk through the operation while we watch. And, so we definitely had to get creative. Now that we're coming out of it, we are starting to travel to customers again, which has been really nice. My team just spent a week at a customer a few weeks ago, and it really helped us, be able to better develop a solution for them.
Isn't it interesting how we never realized how reliant we were on that in-person and that face-to-face meeting and conversations, and how really useful it is to develop a real relationship with a customer or client. For us, in many instances, our members. So it's really interesting. And we likewise, as we tried to maintain our current members as well as to make new relationships. Thank goodness for technology and platforms like Zoom and GoToMeetings and all of these tools for us to still stay connected. And I went to my first networking event last night that it's the first I've been to in a very long time. And it was nice to actually see people that I've only met on Zoom before.
Yeah. It's been nice. We've started coming back to the office little by little, and it really is different. That personal interaction with people really makes a difference.
Huge. So as you're lending your talent and your expertise to our local chapter, there's got to be kind of a reason why you found WIM and got connected with the organization. And I'm a huge fan of Simon Sinek, and I'm sure you and others that might be listening today have heard his kind of TED talk around the why and the importance of why. And so for you, as you reflect personally and professionally, kind of what is your why, and how does that maybe connect to you lending time and expertise to women, other things maybe similar minded?
Yeah, so here at Panasonic, we support, like I said, and work closely with manufacturing organizations. And one of Panasonic's big initiatives is really to promote diversity and inclusion. And with such a low representation of women in manufacturing, we really felt it important to get involved in an organization that promotes and supports and mentors women.
That's excellent. And then had you been previously involved in any women's organizations, or yourself personally involved in mentoring or connecting or supporting, future women leaders?
Yeah, so at my previous company, I was on the board of the women's organization. And I've actually, since joining Panasonic, have gotten involved in the women's group here as well. I do also do a lot with RIT as an alumni, meeting with students, mentoring them. So yeah, I do a lot with my alma mater, mentoring young women in engineering.
Excellent. So when you talk to these young women in engineering, what are some of their common challenges, and what are some of the words of wisdom that you perhaps give them as they're looking to how to navigate their career and how to be successful? What are some of those conversations like that you have with them?
Well, I mean, one of the big pieces of advice that I give to women is network, network, network. It's really so important for women to build a network of trusted advisors, peers, mentors, and more importantly, advocates. When I was at my previous company, I thought I had a great network, but they were all within that company. And then when I lost my job, I didn't have a network outside of it to lean on. So I highly encourage women to get involved with organizations like WIM to build their networks. Get involved in your local chapter, attend conferences, and really get to know people in your industry. And it's not just building a long list of LinkedIn connections, it's really getting to know people, share experiences, and help each other out.
So important. And that's often some similar guidance I give to women that I mentor as well. Is the network piece is so important. And to your point, especially for women who've been at the same company for the bulk of their career, it's so important to externally network because you never know what could happen. And
Exactly.
you never know where you might need to call upon some people just for guidance and referrals and connections. And when you talk about advocacy and mentorship and sponsorship, likewise, it's great to have people in the room, both at your own company and at other companies thinking about you when positions open up or when opportunities arise.
Yeah, exactly.
So in the course of your career, I'm sure you've had lots of successes, but maybe also a few challenges along the way. If you had a look or maybe again, reflect on perhaps one of those biggest challenges or maybe one of those more significant challenges that you've encountered in your career, and perhaps lend some guidance as to how you overcame that, I'd be interested to learn more.
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge was when I first went to work managing the factory. It was the first time managing people, and I had over 100 industrial staff reporting into me. And I was really nervous going into it because, like so many women, I'm a people pleaser, and I really, I want to make everybody happy. And we had a lot of changes and improvements to make, which people don't typically handle very well. So what I really learned is that no matter what you do, you cannot make everybody happy. Really the most important thing is that you're respected, and that is accomplished by honesty, following through on what you say you're going to do, and helping people to understand why you're making the changes you are.
Yeah, I think that's so important. I think communicating, again, the why. Why are these changes happening? People can get behind things as long as they understand the reasoning behind it. Just throwing change at people and new processes without explanation doesn't often go well.
Exactly.
So as you look at some of your kind of wins along your career and your journey, are there any that kind of come to mind of like a really proud moment or really proud day in your career that you've had professionally that sticks out?
I mean, I think it's when we launched the new flagship product. I mean, it was a huge challenge. We managed to launch on time, which, considering the headwinds that we had, it was an amazing feat. We had a catastrophic failure in the design, with just a couple of months to launch. We had to completely redesign, retool, and start up a new production line for a new module in order to overcome this design flaw that we found. So that was a huge success that we had in my career. That it really took a great team. I'm still close with all the people on the team that I worked with. We worked so well together and just really made it happen.
And on time is so exciting when things can be done, delivered on time and efficiently. And I think you spoke to that importance of teammanship. And I think the pandemic has provided some really unique challenges as well as opportunities for how to collaborate as a team, how to strengthen a team during a period in which many of us can't be together. We have a small but mighty team at WIM of 7 employees, and we're always trying to investigate and explore how to build our teammanship, even though we can't, or even though we're not going to an office every day. So
Yeah, yeah.
interesting. Is your team all remote, or are you folks reporting to offices, or how are you structured?
Right now, so we're a fairly small group within, this big Panasonic. The majority of us are based in Rochester, the engineering team, but we do have our sales team is scattered throughout the United States and Europe, and then the two engineers that work for me, one is in Detroit and the other one is in Houston. So my team is remote. In fact, we're bringing them to town next week for a team building exercise, spend the week together with the engineering team, learning new changes coming in the products. So it is important as much as possible to be in person. So I like to bring them into town quarterly.
Excellent. So we talked a little bit about mentorship and the importance of being a mentor, making relationships with mentees. And I know I've hugely benefited from some reverse mentoring, especially as employees and people that I connect with seem to be younger and younger than I am. And I just seem to keep aging and aging, which is a delight. So as you've gone through, I'm sure, many mentoring relationships, can you share perhaps a meaningful experience you've had as either a mentor or mentee?
Yeah, so there was a time, it was kind of early on in my career. I had made what I thought was a monumental mistake. I won't go into the details. But as women, we fear making mistakes, which often holds us back. I had an amazing mentor at the time, and quite frankly, she still is today. I call on her frequently. She gave me some of the best advice I ever received. And what she told me, she said, people won't remember the mistakes you made. What they will remember is how you fixed it. And that has really stuck with me to this day. We have to stop being afraid of making mistakes. It's so much more important to own up to your mistakes, fix them, and learn from them.
That's great advice. It's how you address those mistakes and correct them. And I think accountability is one huge piece of that. I think we as women, you mentioned earlier being a people pleaser. And I think we always want to please others, not rock the boat, fix things as quickly as we can, both, many times in our personal life with kids and family, as well as professionally. And so I think owning those mistakes and how you correct and kind of right things is so important.
Exactly.
So as you look at your kind of career and mentorship, have you had a kind of a mix of male and female mentors? And if so, have they, I'm sure, brought kind of different benefits to both you personally and professionally?
Yeah, I've had both male and female. My boss, when I managed the manufacturing operation in particular, it wasn't really a formal mentor-mentee relationship, but he really taught me a lot about managing people and how important it is to listen, effectively communicate, and help them understand the directions we were trying to take the operation in. But I think having both female and male mentors are so important. Women tend to gravitate to female mentors. But unfortunately, men are still the majority of the decision makers. We're making progress, but it's still the case where, especially higher you go in the organization, men are more of the decision makers. If you really want to get ahead, you need to have mentors and sponsors in decision-making roles. And that's why it's so important to have both male and female mentors, advocates, sponsors.
And as you look at kind of the male mentors that you've had along the way in your career, has there been one or two that stand out who have made a positive impact on your career or life, or a specific instance where they really, really changed things for you professionally?
Yeah, like I mentioned, my boss, there have been other male, again, I wouldn't necessarily, they weren't formal mentor-mentee relationships, but people that really influenced the way I approached the operation. People that really taught me, how to communicate, really get my message across, and again, not be afraid to speak up and tell people how my thoughts and where I think things should go.
Are you feeling inspired by our guest's manufacturing journey? Elevate your own path to success by enrolling in an education program produced by the Women in Manufacturing Education Foundation. The WIMEF creates opportunities for you to collaborate, network, learn, and grow through our programs, which are built for individuals from all areas of manufacturing, from production floor leaders to the C-suite. Graduates gain actionable insights and competencies needed to grow in the manufacturing space. For more information on the educational programs delivered through the Women in Manufacturing Education Foundation, please visit our website at www.wimef.org. So you mentioned this new position, this new company you've come to after a long time at another company. That's making kind of a huge step. I think you even call it, you stepped out of your comfort zone in your career to move into this new position and role. Why do you think it's important for women to step out of their comfort zones and to explore new opportunities, whether it be at a different company or in a different role or position? Why is that important?
Yeah, I mean, without stepping outside of your comfort zone, you'll never grow and learn new things. I never would have known I was capable of managing a manufacturing operation or working with customers. And I really surprised myself and learned that, I am actually really good at these things. As a teenager, even in my early 20s, I never would have thought that I could do these things, that I could work in manufacturing. And I really, I took that leap and I loved those years that I was working in manufacturing. It really taught me a lot and I really grew as a leader.
Isn't it amazing when we can surprise ourselves and when we can find not only that we can rise to the occasion and do a job that maybe we never thought we could do, but as well when we find such pleasure from it. Yeah. And when you're able to kind of have that personal satisfaction of accomplishing great things, doing things that you thought you couldn't do, it's really cool. And as you talk about being in our 20s and as you're counseling and talking to young students at RIT, what do we know when we're that young? I often laughed. I have nieces and nephews in college, and we all ask them, "What are you going to do, or what are you pursuing?" And it's like, how can we expect kids at that young age to know? And then sadly, how can we expect them to know about manufacturing when so many of them haven't even heard about manufacturing, except for maybe a chapter in 6th grade about the Industrial Revolution and factories and all of that? It's crazy to think about, how that early influence is so important with individuals to inspire them to think about manufacturing and consider it. But as well, we're really young when we're asking people to make decisions about careers and education.
Yeah, like I said, when you're teenagers, you don't know what you want to do for the rest of your life. I'm kind of going through this right now with my son. He's 20, and he still is, he's been taking some college classes, but he still doesn't know what he wants to do. And it's really hard. I've been encouraging him to get into engineering of some kind. I think engineering in general opens up a lot of opportunities. By having an engineering degree, it opened up manufacturing to me. Again, something I never would have considered in my teenage years. But engineering is just such a great stepping stone to a lot of opportunities in your career.
Fully agree. And I myself wasn't an engineer. I was an English pre-law women's studies major, so not connected to engineering, but I've seen the huge benefits of it from fellow friends and roommates in college who were pursuing engineering. And interestingly enough, my daughter, who's now a sophomore, is interested in engineering. And she really got excited about it after watching The Big Bang Theory. So you talk about television and influencing new generations. Had it not been for that show, I don't know if she would have as much spirit and passion around it. She even put up a whiteboard in her bedroom to be doing formulas and crazy stuff because Sheldon was doing that. And I'm like, gosh, great. How do we get to that though for manufacturing? I keep saying, and I was on a podcast not too long ago to talk about, we need that opportunity to showcase manufacturing in a media way. and in an entertainment way almost for future generations, where it makes it exciting and where they can see what modern manufacturing really looks like.
Yeah, exactly.
So as you look at personal goals, so you've got kids. How old are your kids? You said 20-year-old?
Yeah, 20, and my youngest one is 16.
Okay. So do you have, I'm sure you've maybe benefited from pandemic. At least I know I have a 14 and 15-year-old, and it's been a blessing to be grounded and not to have to travel a whole bunch and get to experience more live in real time, high school and helping and all that kind of stuff. So how has it changed maybe kind of your familial life, being perhaps not traveling and moving into a different role? And as well, what are some personal goals and or personal reflections you've had after pandemic or while we're still experiencing it?
Well, yeah, like I said, my kids are getting older. My youngest one is a senior this year. So we don't have much longer altogether before they, move on, to their own lives. So the pandemic has really helped us, spend more time together as a family. But now that things are kind of loosening up, and the kids are, they have all their friends and girlfriends and all of that. We're not spending quite as much time together, but I really do try to, I really do try to have at least dinner once a week together. I know that doesn't sound a lot, but when you've got teenagers, it's a lot. We do try to have as much as we can. We love doing family game night. So we like playing Settlers of Catan. So it gets very competitive.
I've never heard of Settlers of Catan.
It's a great game. It's a great game.
Is it a physical board game?
It's kind of a board game. It's all strategy and so it's a really good, we get very competitive in my house with that game.
We'll have to check it out. Settlers of Catan. That is funny. Yeah, we likewise with our two. Mine aren't driving yet, so they're kind of more stuck at my house. And I get nervous about the day they get a license and are free to flee with their friends and do lots of social stuff. But it's crazy how time passes and how quickly, you're at the stage where you're like, am I ever going to get a good night's sleep, and doing bath time and all these rituals. And then soon enough, they're now in high school and going to college or in college. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So if you look professionally at some goals, you obviously made a big career shift and transition not too long ago. So if you look out forward and futuristically, what are some professional goals that you've set for yourself?
Well, one of the things that I always set it as a New Year's resolution, and I'm really actually doing better sticking to it this year, is I really, when I do have the chance to read, I do tend to read more professional development type books. So I actually just recently signed up for an Audible membership, and I'm currently, I guess, reading or listening to Girl Stop Apologizing by Rachel Hollis. I'm about 2/3 the way through it. But I try to spend, a half an hour every morning just, listening to the book while I get ready in the morning. So, reading more, getting more informed, I try to spend a few minutes every day just catching up on industry news and just news in general. So that's kind of what I've really kind of set some time aside in the mornings to really try to better myself and educate myself and learn more.
Great. And I think you made a great point of kind of figuring out what tools work best for you. And I know I'm always looking for what are the most efficient ways that I can be entertained, informed. And so like you, I also am now active with Audible and love it because I've become big into walking. And so I'll utilize a walk. So it's twofold. I'm not just walking and burning calories and getting steps, but that I can listen to a book. And I've been listening to The Wreckage of My Presence by Casey Wilson. She used to be on the show Happy Endings, and I loved it. But it's more of a comedic book, but about her journey as a woman and in a male-dominated field of acting and entertainment. So again, I try to mix mine with some entertainment, silly, funny, as well as some that are more professional development oriented. Yeah, it's good stuff. So we always like to close our conversations and our dialogue with our guests around some rapid fire questions.
Okay.
So getting to know a little bit more about some of your favorite things And then as well to kind of share your final piece of advice to our current listeners who maybe are already in manufacturing or connected to manufacturing or even considering manufacturing, which we hope we have a mix of all. So you talked about kind of books and reading. What is your either ultimate favorite book or most recent favorite book that you have read?
Again, I tend to read more professional development books, and my favorite book, and in fact, I've read it twice, is The Goal by Eli Goldratt. So if you are in manufacturing and you haven't read it, you really should read it. It's a great book.
The Goal by Eli
Goldratt.
I will check it out. And then as you look at kind of things that and or statements that have inspired you over the course of your life, do you have a favorite kind of quote or statement that's really impacted you?
On my LinkedIn page, I actually have this quote from Albert Einstein. We can't solve problems by using the same kind of thinking we used when we created them.
It's great advice. That you have to be innovative. We've got to have new ways of thinking. That's an excellent quote. And then I don't know how big of a TV or movie watcher you are, but do you have a favorite TV show or movie of all time or else currently that you're watching?
So I just finished watching on Netflix, The Last Kingdom. That was excellent. I watched the first 4 seasons and I think there's a 5th one coming. So I'm looking forward to that. My favorite TV show, one of my favorites, you mentioned it before, is Big Bang Theory. I love that TV show. And probably my favorite movie, it's an oldie but a goodie, Raiders of the Lost Ark. I loved that movie. And who doesn't love Harrison Ford?
That is a great movie. We binged that over beginning of pandemic. We were trying to do trilogies or movies that had kind of those multiple chapters that we could watch. And that is a good one. And it's still so enjoyable. So many of those movies like Goonies, I watched with my kids over break and pandemic. And it's crazy that those still are just really relevant and entertaining, even though it's sad to watch those people that are now my age, like Sean Astin or older. And you're like, holy cow, Mikey was 10 or 12 when he filmed that movie?
Yeah, we watched Ferris Bueller's Day Off. My kids loved it. And that's, something from, when I was their age it was a great, and they loved it. Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
It's a great movie. So I don't know how much downtime you have, but when you do have downtime, how do you like to spend kind of your time off?
Well, I love to play golf. Here in Western New York, golf season doesn't usually start until maybe May. And it can go as late as October, but I have played on Christmas Eve before, which very unusual. But I love to play golf. I try during the summer to play at least once a week.
That's excellent. I've still not learned how to play golf, and I'm desperate to do so. So some friends, girlfriends, and I have talked about joining a women's league and then kind of holding ourselves accountable to learn how to golf prior to obviously getting started with the season, because I think it'd be a great social opportunity as well as just a decompression to be able to be out on a course, do lots of walking, enjoy weather and conversation.
Exactly.
So I don't know how much travel you're doing. Obviously, we now have Delta variant, and that's adding a whole nother layer of interestingness for all of us. But maybe last place you traveled and the place you next plan to travel to?
Well, we actually just over Labor Day weekend went with some friends to Maine. We found this cute little town. Great beach, great shopping, great restaurants. So we spent a weekend there. In terms of a next trip, I'm really hoping next summer to be able to go to Europe. My sister lives in Belgium and I have family in Greece. So we hope to do a family trip to one or both of them next summer.
That would be a really amazing family trip. And I always think wasn't Mamma Mia filmed in Greece, I think?
Yes, it was.
Stunning, beautiful. I mean,
it is beautiful.
Amazing. And then you're coming to Summit, I believe, right? So
yes, I am. Yes,
have you join us in Cleveland here. And I think we're a week out, which is crazy, from Summit. So we'll be excited to see you in Cleveland, where I'll get to meet you live.
Yeah.
Our event, which is fun.
Looking forward to it. Yeah.
So as we look at kind of your closing pieces of advice, so for any listeners who've listened, obviously you're talking to people all the time. As you mentioned, you're involved in mentoring students and others in industry, but what would be one of your most significant pieces of advice you'd give to future women or current women in manufacturing?
Sorry about that. Going back to what I said earlier, networking, joining organizations, getting outside of your company and meet people in your industry. Like I said, WIM is great. I always encourage the students I talk to get involved in the Alumni Association. Get to know the alumni. It's a great way to build your network. And like you said, if you ever need it, by having that network, you have people you can lean on and get help and get advice. So I think that's really my biggest piece of advice. And then also, finding a good mentor and advocate, and don't just, have women mentors. I think it is important to have a male mentor or an advocate, to get a different perspective and, get, other people that can open doors for you.
So important. And we are so happy, Christina, that you're a part of our Women in Manufacturing Association network. And I really appreciate you taking the time to have a conversation with us to share your career insights and share a little bit about your journey. So thanks for being a part of our Hear Her Story podcast today. And we look forward to you staying connected with our association.
Great. Thank you so much, Allison. I really enjoyed my time with you.
Excellent. Take care and we'll talk soon.
Okay.
Thank you for listening to Hear Her Story, a podcast produced by the Women in Manufacturing Association. Be sure to share, review, and subscribe to Hear Her Story on Apple, Google, Spotify, or wherever you like to listen. In the past 10 years, more than 3,000 new apprenticeship programs have been established within U.S. manufacturing, representing 128% growth within the industry. This isn't surprising since registered apprenticeship programs give employers access to a diverse pool of talented potential employees. The Women in Manufacturing Association has partnered with Jobs for the Future to connect our members and their companies with a streamlined way of recruiting, retaining, and training women in manufacturing through their own registered apprenticeship programs. For more information on how to build your own registered apprenticeship program, please visit our website at womeninmanufacturing.org.